the third webinar, Artificial Intelligence and Critical Thinking in European Solidarity Corps. This is our third webinar in a webinar series of exploring digital transformation in the context of Solidarity Corps and volunteering. Today, we're going to be exploring artificial intelligence opportunities, risks, dilemmas, ethical questions related to the Solidarity Corps and volunteering context. So we're going to have several guests, webinar speakers. You already probably saw their descriptions on the Salto website. Um, this is really a crucial aspect to mention. In the previous webinars, we had already AI mentioned quite a few through Q&A session, through some of the speakers, and we're promising that we're going to talk more about it and we're going to explore what is the role of artificial intelligence, especially probably for us as people from nonprofit field, more in terms of using generative AI. The field is already using it a lot for checking the text, generating content, visuals, and whatnot. And soon we're gonna be, yeah, exploring how you are using it and what questions you would like to explore. But before we go into that, I would like to invite one of our webinar partners, Juha Tobel-Kiviniemi from Salto Digital Resource Center, to open the third webinar.
Thank you, Lamras. We've been indeed supporting the French NA in organizing these webinars with Salto Digital and Salto European Solidarity Corps. I wanted to open with three considerations which are kind of close to what is close to my heart, which is the definition of digital youth work as a tool, activity, and content in youth work. So first of all, when we talk about digital transformation in ESC volunteering, of course, we consider tools. What are the useful digital tools that we can use in order to make our projects better and bring some added value? So that's why we had the digital tools in the very first webinar. The second consideration is, of course, being responsible users of technology and very human-centric kind of operators. We wanted to consider the well-being effects of technology on participants and volunteers as well. So that's why the digital well-being and mental well-being of volunteers was a big issue in the second webinar. Now, the third, of course, because European Solidarity Corps has this lovely, lovely definition of digital transformation in the program, helping all participants and all citizens, regardless of background, to live and thrive in the digital age. We would be remiss if we wouldn't talk about societal impact and overall impacts of artificial intelligence that is currently happening. So what it is to live and thrive in the age of AI, one might paraphrase the thing. So we are now exploring today the effects of AI on required skills, ethics, competences, all of this quite interesting, sometimes quite complex stuff, but I'm really confident that our speakers can give you a good overlook on it. Finally, I wanted to ask, of course, AI, one of the large language models that we use in our work, what it thinks is what is the role of AI in European Solidarity Corps? And this is what the AI said. AI in the European Solidarity Corps is mainly a support tool for projects and coordination. Second, a learning topic, digital skills and ethics. And third, a driver of innovation in volunteering. Now, what was also really kind of helpful and comforting was that the AI concluded like this: AI doesn't replace the human social aspect of volunteering, but it enhances impact and modernizes how solidarity work can be implemented. With that, I'll leave you with our excellent webinar, and I hope you have some cool insights today. Thank you.
Thank you, Juha. It's indeed interesting to know what the language models think about volunteering and projects. And now it's the time actually to hear from everyone here in the webinar. What do you think about it? How do you use it? What questions do you have? And what risks you potentially see in using AI in the context of volunteering and projects? We have already more than 100 people, so it's really interesting to get some contribution from your side. So very shortly, I will share a screen with you, and already soon you will get a possibility to vote and contribute your ideas. So please check in the chat of the webinar for the link to Mentimeter. You can also use your phone simply to scan the code that you can see in the corner of Mentimeter. Or alternatively, if you cannot scan or you cannot click on the link, you can just go to the browser, menti.com, and use the code 85239761. And we have already a lot of people joining in. Let's see where you are coming from. We have now the bigger the letters, it means the more people are from that country. So we have France right in the middle. No surprise, the French National Agency is one of the key organizers of the whole webinar series. So I guess they had a good promotion and good response from the field. We have also quite some people from Romania, Finland, Azerbaijan, Germany, Austria, Sweden, Belgium, Ukraine, Greece, Portugal, Turkey, Hungary, Italy, Spain, Ireland, Serbia, Libya, Moldova, Kosovo, Tunisia. Right. Inviting more people to share where you're connecting from, and soon we're going to have some few other questions about how you use AI in your context. So we have more people in the webinar. So please do, you can use the phone to scan it. If you are following this webinar on the phone, you just open your browser, go to menti.com and use the code 85239761. And with the code, you will be able to join the Mentimeter, so we can also find out more from your side. I can see people are already impatient with the next questions, and they already wrote in here, I use AI for my homeworks. All right, good. So few more people joining in. So I'm keeping the QR code in the corner. Perhaps more will join soon. Good. Let's go to the next slide. And the next slide will be also a word cloud. And here we want to know, in one word, how does the whole idea of using artificial intelligence in volunteering projects make you feel? And then the more people gonna add their answers or similar words, the bigger the word will be in the word cloud. And the first thing I saw in the middle of the word cloud is curious, safe, excited, and we have a few more that probably single words, single time were used in the answers. We have skeptical, a bit bigger, okay. And then we have more answers from many of you as supported. Some people say uncomfortable or anxious. But I see if I would kind of first view to analyze this, rather positive. Some people say it's good, it's powerful, it's great, it's companion, it's an opportunity. But also we have other things coming up from you right now. You feel confused, you feel doubt, disconnection, I see other words. And someone said, well, to be honest, I don't know, how do I feel about it? maybe you also never used it, yeah? But just try to sense when you go there and you ask something to produce or to check the text or to create some content or help you with questions or create a video or an image, or maybe you're building your copy of yourself, your virtual avatar, which will be responding to someone's questions. How do you feel about it? Some people feel doubts. Some people feel a bit worried about it, and also sense of meaningless. So we have more and more diverse options coming in. All right. I still wanted to show it in a bigger cloud. Yes. So we still have curious, excited, safe, comfortable, and confident being in the middle. So seems to be a group of people who feel rather positive about the potential and the opportunities that AI has to offer at this moment. Good. Let's go to the next slide. If any of you are joining right now to the webinar, I see the number of people are increasing. You can scan this QR code that I will show in the middle in a second. Yes, you can scan this code and join the Mentimeter and leave your opinion as well. There will be a couple of questions from before, and then we can move on to the next question, where we would like to know how, in which areas do you think artificial intelligence is already helping or could help in Solidarity Core, in volunteering? Maybe it's communication, maybe it's inclusion or management, or maybe it's supporting learning or reporting. And let's see, where do we have it? Yeah, a lot going on around communication. AI is not that bad in creating texts, indeed, and also bringing interesting questions. Fewer people I can see under inclusion, though AI recently really provided a lot of opportunities that were not available before. We can so easily translate to many languages. We can transform text to audio or audio to text or text to video. So yeah, it adds a lot of new opportunities that weren't available. So a lot still under management. I can show the QR code again. So for those who just joined, you can use your phone, scan the code, leave your opinion. Right. So if I would say from the ones who already expressed their opinion, half of the people think for communication and management, supporting learning and reflection, reporting a lot, but not that much for inclusion. And then three people said for something else. Of course, it's not an exhaustive list. I think AI can be used in very, very diverse ways already right now, and probably many more ways in the future. We're just seeing the surface of what we can do with different tools that are at hand at the moment. And now let's go to the next one. And there it's a ranking option. So when you open this slide on Mentimeter, it allows it, you can see the options, and it allows you to kind of drag different elements based on which risks you consider to be the highest. So these ones you put it up, and the least risk you put it down. So let's see, what do we have? I'm keeping the QR code if you still want to join. And alternatively, check the link in the chat of the Zoom. So people so far are saying the biggest risk is that it's easy to create fakes. So you can create a non-existing human image or a video. You can give a voice to that human, right? You can give voice even to a fake animal right now. You can create fake web and so on. So it's easy to create fakes. That's one of the risks. Data privacy, and there are different options to still, to a certain extent, secure a little bit the usage of AI, but also you need that knowledge how to do it. So data privacy was in a second place, but in this now in the second place we have the loss of critical thinking, where so much is created by AI and is so close to reality that it becomes difficult actually to understand what is created by whom, what is human created, what is AI creation. And at the same time, uh, yeah, I can see the tendency that we use it more and more instead of creating things from scratch, right? So, and whatever is created needs to be checked. Are we checking everything that AI is creating? That's another question. Then in the fourth place, we have cultural bias. We can see a lot of movements now around the world where people from underrepresented communities, they clearly see that their views are not there available because it's based on a large data sets of languages, and very often only most common languages are taken for the training. So often things written in non-English languages may be left behind. Yeah. Also the view to the world, the history, and many other things that may cause a certain cultural bias when the content is created. Yeah, especially you can notice this when you ask to create an image of a person, what kind of person is visible there. Yeah, factual inconsistencies. The word hallucination was probably one of the biggest words a couple of years ago when AI really exploded. Um, and it keeps on doing that actually. So the check of the AI results is crucial. Digital exclusion is in the sixth place, but we should not forget that not everyone has equal access to technology. Some of the tools become more and more expensive, and there's a likelihood that many of the tools that majority is using right now might become more and more expensive. So there will be a question also how accessible the tools are, especially in non-profit sector, where many of us, we operate in under-resourced manner. Great. We have a lot of interesting data to deal with. We also asked you to identify what other digital related topics would you like to explore in the future webinars, because there is a plan to launch some more webinars in the future. So we will be analyzing all your answers there. And I'm moving, so keep on adding things in this question. And here I would like to stop a little bit and then say that this is a place where you can ask questions to our webinar guests. So you can ask the question, but you can also upvote questions of others if you thought like, wow, it's a great question. I would like to get an answer, because we're going to start from most upvoted questions. Yeah, you can always ask a question by clicking on the link in the chat or by having your Mentimeter on your phone in your browser. There is a button Q&A. You open it and ask your question. And I think that would be it for the Mentimeter at the moment. Amanda will be sending in the chat uh, a link a couple of more times in case new people will be joining. Right, I think it's time then to see and get to know our contributors of the webinar. And we have three contributors today. And we will start from one of the webinar guests from Finland. It's Jarno Alastalo, and Jarno introduces himself as a techno-philosopher. He's an author and architect of digital communities. Jarno also created some really cool publications and text for the field of youth work. We already shared the link to the publication in the Padlet. Maybe Amanda, soon you can share a link to the Padlet as well so people can get to know more about it. But without a further ado, I'm inviting Jarno to introduce himself and what's your take on AI in the field of youth?
Thank you very much, and I will share my screen. Hope you can see it over there. And it's very, very nice to be over here. Like Leimona said, I'm Jarno Alastalo, and I have spent years of building social media services and digital communities. And I'm author of these two books that you can see there called Black Box, and the second one is the AI Guide book for youth workers. But today I want to challenge you how we look technology, especially maybe in the volunteering projects. And let's talk about AI as the mirror. We often treat AI as an oracle or even mighty god that can do anything. Or another aspect is that we see AI as the destroyer of humanity from the dystopian movies. But I see the AI as a black box. And this black box has these two faces. The visible tools we use, like ChatGPT or Copilot, and then is the invisible algorithms that use us, like social media feeds. And both those act as a mirror. They don't show us the whole truth. They reflect our data, our biases, and our expectations back to us. And for you, volunteers or mentors or whoever you are, and if you only see the world through this kind of mirror, you aren't experiencing the total reality. You're experiencing a kind of filtered simulation. We have to understand that AI does not create from nothing, but it repeats and borrows what we have been already told for us. So why the critical thinking is so hard today? Because these algorithms on social medias or other AI tools bypass our rational minds and target our maybe primal instincts. And it's because of this cognitive sugar. While we try to be conscious and critical, the machine is feeding our subconscious with this kind of social sugar, especially in social media. And those can be these likes, validations, or outrage. And this kind of maybe constant manipulation leads to this kind of digital submissions. Many young people say that, okay, I cannot do anything that social media is showing me over in the internet. And they feel that they have no power over the machine and simply accept that this is how it works. They are following the rabbit, maybe to the hole without knowing what lies there. So I see that your work, mentorship, is to help them, young people, to wake up from these subconscious loops and break this, maybe you call it even apathy. Nothing can be done on algorithmic world is the that's kind of phrase that is dangerous. So the volunteering, I see it's about slow thinking of solving real problems. AI can easily offer a shortcut, and if a volunteer just uses the AI to write text or make images, they incur this kind of cognitive depth. They get the result, but they lose the growth. And if you skip this struggle of the learning, you skip the whole learning in that way. But there's a positive way. AI should be used as the sparring partner. It shouldn't do the thinking for you, but it can act as a side brain to organize chaotic thoughts, brainstorm ideas, and help volunteers solve problems more creatively. So we must protect this kind of human trace in volunteers' work while using the tool to enhance our own thinking. And I call it as wise AI-lessness. Responsibility doesn't mean banning AI. No, it means wise AI-lessness, where we use AI algorithms without losing our own ability to think. It can help like a volunteer with learning difficulties, like a student I interviewed named Kaneli, to navigate language barriers or complex tasks by breaking them into manageable pieces. It also provides a safe, non-judgmental practice ground for volunteers to rehearse difficult conversations or project pitches without the fear of social rejection. It's a tool for inclusion, but only if human stays in the driver's seat, so-called, and knows the destination. So what is left for human? The big question. AI is a great tool. It's a brilliant simulating data and solve really complex global problems like climate change. But when it comes to the humans, it provides kind of a placebo attention. It can mimic empathy, but it cannot feel. However, sometimes the mimicry is enough, especially when there is not enough humans around to listen. I think that the true value of the ESC is the human connection, the mistakes, the messy emotions, and these moments that we never can see, like pigeons appearing. When AI handles our routines and reminds us of tasks, it frees up our time to be more present in the field with the real people. I would say that don't teach others to be better prompters. Teach them to be better humans who use tools wisely. And I see the most important skills in the age of AI is the ability to think when the machine stops. And we often feel the need to compete with the speed of AI or computer or machine. But in the age of instant automatic answers, the true human superpower is actually slowness. Real learning, empathy, and genuine connection requires this kind of slow, messy, and imperfect struggle of human thinking. That was my point of view of AI. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jarna. I felt a bit traveled in time in childhood, just, watching it as a cartoon. But I think these are really important things to keep in mind, how AI can be useful, what it can be useful for. And thanks a lot for bringing also the importance of the humanity and being a human, right? It's, as you say, it's can be used for inclusion, but only if human being is in charge, because human being will know where inclusion matters the most and how another human being can be included better, right? But I think the exploration and curiosity of what it can do matters a lot, and how actually to really have it as a sparring partner. And I feel myself using it a lot as a sparring partner, where I double check my questions, where I double check maybe my initial ideas. I can see if a technology can bring more ideas than me as a human being. Very interesting. And I heard also from you, Jarno, that yeah, what matters is really understanding the way it works, and understanding there is a lot of machine learning and algorithmic processes behind. And now with this, I would like to move also to our introduction of our second guest. Solène Leclerc from Solidarité Jeunesse. And we're happy to have you here because I know you're working in projects with a lot of media and media literacy. And I think when we talk about critical thinking, being in the seat of creator, a media creator, brings a lot of critical thinking because you understand it much better when you are actually in charge of building stuff and creating stuff. Then you start really knowing how it works. So, a floor to you, a bit to share with us what kind of projects you do and how you help people to be creators and perhaps to be a more also critical thinkers.
Thank you very much for this introduction. I'm gonna share my screen now. Hopefully it works. Is it working? I guess so. Okay, perfect. So yeah, hello everyone. My name is Solène. I work in a French organization called Solidarité Jeunesse. It's a French NGO whose goal is to build peace by creating opportunities for people from different cultural, generational, social backgrounds to live and work together, basically. And to do that, we use volunteering as a non-formal education or popular education tool, as we say in French, to create these opportunities. So we are mostly active in the field of work camps, but also individual European Solidarity Corps, volunteering teams, civic service, which is a French national volunteering program, youth exchanges, and this kind of collective settings. But we also coordinate large-scale projects on priority topics or topics that we identify from the field as priority topics, whose goals are to strengthen our organizational skills and increase the quality of the projects that we propose to volunteers that we host. So Media for Change is the projects that we are currently coordinating and that I'm going to be quickly introducing to you because I think it's a concrete example of how you can use non-formal education to sharpen the critical thinking skills of volunteers and reflect together with them on the use of digital tools and also AI. So Media for Change, in a few words, is a 2-year project which is co-funded by the Erasmus Plus program. It's a Key Action 2 project, and it is supported through the French National Agency with 7 other organizations from Spain, Germany, Turkey, Italy, Estonia, and Czech Republic. So quickly, the goal of Media for Change basically is to train our organization in participatory media, which is a method that we call communication for social change. It is a way to allow us to really create this link and gapping the bridge in a way between non-formal education and the digital tool with the goal of fostering participation, critical thinking skills in volunteers, and media literacy as a whole. To be quite concise about it, but for example, during a participatory media process, you have a facilitator who's supporting a group in first defining their message. Basically, you have a group of people in front of you and they need together to discuss what do they want to say to the rest of the world, basically through their project. And then they kind of self-organizes, the group self-organizes. They are supported by the facilitator and they follow concrete steps. So after defining their message, they need to create a story that conveys their message. Then they need to work in a group, basically, to say who is going to be the director, who's going to be the sound recorder, distribute the tasks between themselves. And then they need to do it, basically, to shoot the content, whether it's photography or podcasts or video. They do that. And then they are also responsible for editing the content. All of this is done through mostly cell phones. So you can use your phone and all the devices, all the applications that you have now. You can do all of that with just the phone, a smartphone. And then they also contribute to the dissemination of the outcome. So during this project, we have 2 training cycles. The project started at the end of 2024 and it runs until beginning of 2027. And now we are starting the second training cycle, but basically we have this very experiential cycle where we first have a technical training where we learn all the technical aspects of it, and then we try out. We have local experimentation phases where we implement what we're doing in the local context, and then we evaluate during a seminar at the end. Participatory media is especially important because you can work with kind of everyone. It is mostly used with people from marginalized backgrounds or people that you usually don't hear in media projects. So for example, in this project, we are mostly working with young people from marginalized backgrounds and from rural areas. So that is something that is really interesting to be able to hear their voices through this. But also this project, I think, shows how important non-formal education is in building young people's critical thinking skills. That's something that we already saw from the first year of the project, because the whole process is collaborative and it's collective. So when they're doing that, when they're going through this process, young people really learn how to put their thinking into words. They learn how to communicate effectively to others. They learn how to advocate for their idea. They learn how to negotiate to create the story and the message. They learn how to work in a team. They learn how to solve a problem. They learn how to translate their story, their feelings through audiovisual language, basically. So they also learn how to be critical in a positive way towards their own work and the work of others because of this experiential cycle. And all of that really builds into their critical thinking skills, really allowing them to reflect on what is media, how to analyze what we are seeing online, how to use responsibly the support, how to use digital tools to support your media creation without it becoming the main focus in your project. So I think that is something that we will develop a bit later on during the questions. But I think it's a good example of really the role of non-formal education and youth work in, as Jarno said, supporting the ability of thinking when the machine stops. I think it was a very nice way to put it into words.
Thank you, Selena, a lot for sharing a little bit what you do. And I think other participants can see a little bit what are the opportunities once we put young people in the creator seat and the creator role. Yeah, what are the chances there to create learning opportunities? And I guess now more and more media projects, when they provide space for production, there is probably also a space for producing with AI and then trying to see how it can be helpful and what it can do, without probably still making without making too many shortcuts, but being in a seat of creator and not just the prompter, right? Now, I would like to remind that you have a possibility to ask questions to our speakers. If you're watching us on YouTube and Facebook, feel free to use comment section to ask your question there. But also you can ask a question through Mentimeter. You can find a Mentimeter link in the chat. If you watch through a social media, please go to menti.com and there is a code to type in so you can contribute, and the code is 85239761. We have already a few questions there. If you don't have a question to ask, everything's clear for you, you can still upvote so we know which questions are you interested in the most. We have already some questions around how to save time when doing administrative and some kind of daunting tasks as a volunteer. There's a question if AI will eventually substitute educators, or how to use AI for critical thinking. Yeah, so these are really cool questions coming in, and we can see more questions popping up. So perhaps while our third webinar guest will introduce himself, you have still a chance to ask questions of your interest. And now we travel from France to Serbia, and I would like to introduce Dan Achansky from Serbia, who is also my colleague. I also work as a trainer, and he works as a trainer, and he's part of Salto South Europe Trainers Pool. He works as a trainer in different kind of training contexts, manages projects, and so on. But also, Dan has an IT sector hat, so he understands the technical side of it. And when we had a preparation, Dan, you mentioned that quite often you really need to go to basics and talk to people what actually generative AI is. So maybe you can somehow add this into your intro and then, yeah, give your explanation. How do you tell it to people who perhaps have zero or very little technical understanding what is behind this this amazing magical tool that is available for most of us?
Hello, thank you for the introduction. As you said, I have a kind of double background, formal education in IT and also some work experience there. But I also spent over a decade engaged in youth work, first as a participant myself in different youth exchanges and programs, and then later as a trainer, educator, and a project manager. So I do understand a little bit of the technical side of it as well, and I'm very interested in recent developments in AI. I'm not going to be very technical today. I think that we already heard some very good ideas about what AI is from Jarno, of course. What is important for us to understand if we are talking about generative AI, that especially for text, we often say it's a large language model. What it means is that it has been giving an unthinkable amount of text, pretty much anything the companies would get their hands on, whether copyrighted or not, we don't know. They are not sharing the resources. But you can imagine if something was online in some way that it found its way into the AI engine. And then we humans are able to think in 3 dimensions, move in 3 dimensions. And the words and phrases that are taken in from these texts, you can think of them as being broken down to the individual words or sometimes phrases, and then being arranged in basically 12,000 dimensions. So this is not something we can wrap our hands around, but it's just important to understand that they are connected in many, many ways inside the engine that we would not easily think of or are able to define. And then this black box, as Jarno says, somehow takes in our questions, breaks questions into small pieces, finds them in its huge space and travels from word to word, and it produces an output. So it's predicting what it's going to say. It is mimicking the human mind, but it doesn't have knowledge or awareness in the ways that humans do. So it's a huge prediction machine based on a amazing amount of statistics and probability. And it looks deceptively human, and then you're easily taken into it, of course, with all the sugar coating of telling you that any question you ask is incredibly clever and you're such a wise person for asking it, right? And it feels very closely to interacting to a human, but there is no consciousness, there is no ethics, there is no morals inside it. And then it invites us to be even more human. So to put even more stress on all the judgment that we are able to bring as humans in the loop. And so we are challenged with having to slow down. This is a perfect statement. We need to give up on the fast thinking and making quick decisions, quick connections, making shortcuts in our decision making. So we have to slow down, but then we are also tasked with productivity at the same time. So we have to be productive. And then something that I hear when I talk to people who are quality label experts, for example, is that they are now given a lot greater number of projects to read through and deal with and evaluate and so on. and to keep their critical thinking. And it's also, I guess, the same challenge for the people who are developing the project. So I think the interesting question for us here is how to be slow and fast at the same time. And that is where the human connection comes in. So we need to be aware of the bias that is inside the machine that comes in from all the texts it's soaking in, but also from the way people are selecting text. So it's some kind of engineers, some humans who put stuff in the machine, and maybe they chose that something is more important than something else. So there is a lot of built-in bias, as you mentioned, that we have to deal with, and then we have to resist the AI's urge to please us. So we have to be very suspicious of what it's giving us until we train it somehow as well to be more direct or more precise in its output to us. So we can ask it. What we can do is we can ask it to communicate with us as a certain person or as a certain role. You can train it to be a coach. You can train it to be a tutor. You can train it to challenge you at all times. So this is something that I think belongs in the practical skills that we need to develop. So us telling the AI what we want from it, what we need from it, in order to get something that will challenge us, that will not just tell us how smart and wise we are, and that will in the end help us get faster. So we can discuss in the second part a bit about what are the practical ways in which we can use AI to shorten the time for us to finish a task while not being forced into fast thinking and making very quick decisions.
Thank you, Dan, for your take. And what I took from your introduction, saying like what you mentioned, like AI looks deceptively human. It gives such like cool, clear answers, but there is it's not a conscious being in a sense that it doesn't know the ethics or moral limits, only to us what has been trained, right? And I think we have already quite some examples of that it can give really strange answers, and it depends a bit on some kind of safeguarding which is there for different generative tools, and it very much depends also like who is behind, right? What are the safeguarding added to these tools? All right, thank you very much. So I think soon we'll now get into the bit of discussion where we have also our all guests present. Just before that, I would like to one more time show you the QR code to the Mentimeter. So I'll just open it quickly for you to scan. So you can use your phone to scan the codes, and this will lead you to Mentimeter, which allows you to ask your questions to the webinar guests. You can also use menti.com and the code that is present on the left side. So I hope you managed to capture. There is also a link in the chat. We already have some really cool questions there. So let's see how much time we'll have to address those. Let's then get into the conversation. So Amanda will ask you to add other webinar guests here to the panel. And you all mentioned that critical thinking is a must because now AI generating a lot of things. But you saw from the Mentimeter in the beginning, a lot of people were saying one of the risks, it can actually produce a lot of fake stuff. Yeah. So becoming a fact in a way that it can create videos, it can create real human-like content a lot. So we have usually practitioners in our webinars, and if you could mention maybe some practical ways how you would work with young people, how you would help them to develop that kind of critical thinking about this, quite new technology producing so much stuff that it's not easy to understand what's fake, what's real. And yeah, Dan?
Yeah, so this is a question to which the answer is changing from month to month, basically. Because if you talked about this a year or even a bit more ago, it was quite easy to spot if you're talking about images, right? Because there were inconsistencies, and you could say, oh, this person has 6 fingers. We are past that point, and now we have to look at how something that arrives to us is affecting us. So if you're seeing content, video, text, whatever, that is producing a very strong emotion in you, that is trying to latch onto your fast thinking, that is urging you, disseminate this, forward this, look at what's happening to us, look at what they're doing to us, or these people, or whatever. It's often going to be the negative emotions, but it can be a super strong positive emotions. I don't know, super cute kittens or whatever. If it's producing a very strong emotion, it's probably a sign you should check. Maybe it's real, maybe it's not, but that for me would be one way to check and to slow down, as we heard. So think if something we have to, and now we come already to the critical thinking, right? Is this affecting me? Is this person, whoever it is, trying to manipulate me or something? And then you need to go back to the source to see if the source is valid. You need to double check, so do some kind of investigation. And then if you see it's confirmed, it's elsewhere, then there is a higher chance it's real. If you don't see it coming from sources that are already confirmed as trustworthy, if you don't see it repeated in other places, then there is a higher chance it's fake, not 100%, but that would be one of the main ways to discern. So how is it affecting you? Let's say as a first question to ask.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I think this kind of clear algorithm there for critical thinking, especially when seeing things online. Stop, think, how do you feel? Check the source, check where it's coming from. Also, double check what kind of source it is. The fact that you found it somewhere on internet doesn't verify that it's actually a real thing, right? Because so much stuff is now shared on multiple websites that are created just to reshare the same fake thing. Few important points indeed, and I see Arno wants to also share his take on this question.
Yeah, the one thing that I even thought that was hard to explain this kind of ethical things to young people, and I'm with young people, I mean people under it, even 10 years old. But then I met one professor from city of Oulu, Finland, and she explained that she has been teaching to the young people the ethical things, very practical ways. And she started with that she showed the picture of muffins and Chihuahua dogs. And AI has difficult to understand which one is a blueberry muffin and which one is dog. And the kids were starting, okay, they cannot recognize that dog is kind of that looking or muffin is that kind of look. And the kids themselves started thinking, how about the Tesla cars? Because they have been reading those that they will have AI driving there. How this kind of AI driven cars see what is the tree and what is the human. And this professor, it's called Sumita Sharma, was thinking, wow, these really kids under 10 years were thinking really hard ethical things related to AI. And this kind of practical pedagogy using this kind of examples can travel this kind of thinking that we even cannot see. And it's really hard thinking because in the future we will have this kind of automated AI systems that we have to understand how they work and how they choose what they do.
Thank you, Jarno. Solen, you are a practitioner, right? What's your take on this? How we actually can develop that critical thinking?
I think, yeah, critical thinking skills nowadays are very crucial for young people. As we were saying, they really help us decipher the intent and the message behind everything we consume, whether they're video, whether they're pictures, whether they're words, text, etc. And I think with youth work, our strength is that they can experience it themselves. For example, I'm taking again the example of participatory media, but it is something that we can implement in all kind of media workshops, basically, because they are doing it themselves. You know, when they are defining their message and then shooting a video, for example, to convey their message, they are thinking how to manipulate the audience in a way. You know, they're choosing this specific angle or to show this specific, I don't know, object, person, animal, to make the audience feel a certain way because they want their message to get through this. So because they have been doing this work themselves, they experienced it themselves, they've been through this experiential cycle, then when they are consuming media afterwards, they are more aware of why is this person showing me this angle, this object, this cat, this kitten, this whatever they're showing. How do they want me to feel about their topic? And because they've been doing it themselves, and it's a core principle of non-formal education, you're doing it yourself, and you're the main actor of your learning process and experience. So the discussions that we've been having with our project participants since last year really show that because they've been going through this process themselves, then they're more aware of it when they see other media content. And because we're also doing this work ourselves, when we evaluate the media productions of other groups, for example, we always ask, what do you think the message is behind this video, even if it's a very light and a light topic. But I think it's very important to train and sharpen young people's skills in that sense. This is, I mean, it's true for every kind of content that we can see online or on TV. But in the age of AI, I think with AI crafted content, it's a bit easier maybe to manipulate opinions, to manipulate the truth, to create fakes. So, and where the content is coming from is also more and more opaque, I guess. So I think it's really important to really sharpen their skills in that. And youth work, I think, is very efficient in that sense.
Thank you. Now I would like to address actually one of the questions from the participants. Actually, the most upvoted question is about the tools. Someone is asking, like, what are the tools to consider and what are the tools that are overhyped? But I would like to ask your take a little bit from a different angle as we talk about critical thinking and developing it. Maybe you have some ideas how people actually should choose the right tool for the right purpose. Yeah. Maybe is there something to look beyond the obvious? Should we be aware who developed the tool? What's the business model behind? What is there? Maybe how people actually can choose the tools when there is such an abundance of really now tools can create almost whatever we wish.
Maybe I can start. At least in Finland, we have a situation that 90% are forced to use one tool, like Copilot, Microsoft environment in their works, that kind of things. I think it's hard, but like we come back to that thing that the tools, you have to understand, like, if you are asking this kind of, well, let's say stupid questions from the internet or ChatGPT or Copilot, if it searches the knowledge what has been given, and those can be Reddit channels or other social media feeds. But if you are using tools that you have the input, you have ability to bring your content safely to there. I use that kind of tools that I know that it's my content, my created, and I can ask those kind of things. So it kind of eases in that hallucinations, or I know what is the source and that kind of things. I know that it's not somebody from the Reddit channel who is thinking that he is the master of the universe, and it's not so.
You can also look at the tools that are available built inside the European Union, because the EU has its AI Act, And this is too short space to discuss it. In many ways, it was outdated the way it was the day it was brought in, but it is an effort in a proper direction. And then you can look at the lesser known tools. In France, they have Mistral AI. In Germany, there is Aleph Alpha. There is the EuroLLM, pan-European one. And they are closer, their implementation is connected closer to the EU rules and regulations, and it's more open. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but they're more transparent on the sources and where the information is coming on and what they are doing with it. And then you can choose one of those tools, see if it's fit for purpose. And if you are an organization with some resources, you can even have running it on your own infrastructure, disconnected maybe from the public internet. So whatever you're putting in it stays there, and it's not does not become part of the bigger tool. Also, what we need to understand, if you give some input to the generative AI, it's not going to preserve it as a whole. Like, you cannot ask ChatGPT to give you the full works of Shakespeare or something. So it's not that kind of one-to-one copying, but whatever you give it will in some form stay there. So anything that's under GDPR should just not be entered in any of the public tools, right? Because in some form it's staying there. So yeah, look at maybe at the EU tools and look into the possibility of a local implementation of a tool, so you get the benefits, but you're not connected to the public internet.
Okay, thank you for a few ideas. Perhaps then, if you can in the chat mention some of the tools you mentioned, so it will be easier for people
Yes.
then to look for them. Not necessarily links; it can be just the names of the tools that. So yeah, one of the ways to think is who is behind. Yeah, and then maybe we can choose also the tools from Europe over the tools produced elsewhere with different kind of legislation, with different business model behind. I think we heard also of stories when, you know, CEOs' personal political views are very much infused in the output of generative AI. So then, you know, if we use it as our sparring partner will have a very clear opinion about certain things and will give us certain results and won't give the other type of results. Great, yeah. So you can see the answers from Dan already in the chat. Okay, let's go to the ethical considerations, because I think you were touching about this already. And one of the most voted questions from participants, I think to my surprise, that it's about the environmental aspects. So what is your take on that? Is it like how much we should be really thinking about it and aware of environmental aspect of using AI tools for some basic things, or should we choose something else instead, which is maybe less AI driven? So what's your take on this, and who would like to answer? Dan?
Well,
Yeah.
I can, yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I just took my notes over because, like, explaining the one ChatGPT or Copilot prompt consumes same amount as 5 minutes LED light or something, or in that way. Or if you generate the video, it consumes about same amount as microwave is consuming 1 hour. So it means, of course, that when you are sending several messages, it consumes a lot. It consumes also a lot of water and other things. And for me, it's not surprise, because the biggest thing when you're talking with the youngsters and over there, the one thing is that why they is when they say that they don't want to use the AI is because the environmental issues. And this is kind of two-edged sword, because AI can really solve the climate change problems if we put the money to this kind of things, not putting in the war systems, and that could be solving these big issues. And then I see it in that way, how much I have to use energy, do I have to use the car because it or something other that uses energy to do things that I can do with the AI? You have to think like wider things over there, not just thinking that it consumes energy to this task, because it's sometimes it's better in environmental issues also to use AI. But of course, like not using if you don't have to use it, like generating the cat videos. Maybe for mental health, it can be good also generating those sometimes and playing things. But like in your work or related those, don't use it for all nonsense in that way because it consumes a lot of energy.
Thank you. Dan, you wanted to add?
Basically the same point. I think the ethical considerations are the same as with flying or taking a car. If I'm going from Belgrade to Budapest, I'm not going to take a plane. I will choose a train if possible or a car. If I'm going to India, then yes, maybe I will take a plane. So just it's consuming a huge amount of energy because it went, for example, in generative AI tools, from 0 to 100 million users over a matter of couple of months. So we are seeing industrial revolution all over again, but at a very fast scale. Like the steam engine changed the world, but it took decades, and this is taking months. So it's the scale that is using using up the resources, not your individual usage. But then again, as you're thinking about the plastic bags, about bicycle versus car to work and so on, the same applies here, I would say.
Thank you. Solen, I wanted to ask you a bit also in the way of ethical implication of using AI. And I know that you run workshops and activities with young people, and sometimes AI can be really this kind of shortcut, like very quickly can create an image. But then you as a person, you don't put too much like thinking into it, creativity and kind of a human touch in that. What ethical implications or also educational implications do you see in this process?
I think for me, that's really the main stake for youth work, because if I once again take the example of media workshops, for sure they could ask an AI to create the content or the video. That's a shortcut, and probably the quality would be better than if they do it themselves and take the mic and take the camera and stuff like that. But from an educational perspective, there's no value in having a perfect outcome because the process is more important than the outcome. You can have a perfect video, but that's really not what we're looking for. And I think transparency in our intention as educators, I think that's the trick. Really insisting on the fact that we actually don't really care about the result that much. We care about the process and about what you're going to learn during the process, because what you're going to learn doing a media creation is not only about creating content, but it's about working in a group, about advocating, about all of these skills that I mentioned before. And this is something that you can use not only in this ESC project that you're participating to, but in your whole life in general. That is something that you can reuse later. And if you just use the ChatGPT shortcut, for example, then you are going to miss all of that. So I think that's the stake, because the comment that we can get is kind of losing the engagement and like, why should I go through this whole process, through this whole workshop, when I can just ask a machine to do it in 2 minutes? That's the stake, and we need to foster this engagement, I think, by really explaining what they're gonna take from that, what they're gonna learn from that, where they can reuse this learning. And I think that's the trick that we're trying to experiment, because when we first were working on this project, it was, I think, in 2022, 2023, and we didn't think about AI that much at that time. And now we're seeing AI being used quite a lot. So we need to catch up with it as well also. So yeah, I think for now, that's the thing that we see is really clarifying the intent that we have, explaining why we want them to go through the process and not just going through the shortcut, but also explaining that it can indeed support the sometimes you can search for information in a more efficient way, in a faster way. You can use it to support your like kind of thinking process, but not as a shortcut to create the outcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I think few very important messages there because it's about what we use it for, right? What's the end goal? And then in the youth work, if our goal is for people to experience, then how many shortcuts do we make in that experience, right? Because the learning happens when we experience, when we have challenge for us. And there might be, of course, some challenges that you need to use AI to get to some result, but then it has to be a conscious choice. Perhaps I'll take on another question. So from few people, we have a question which is around like, how do I use it? Let's say if I'm a volunteer, how do I use AI in a way that on one hand, I'm like solving like repetitive tasks faster or administrative tasks, boring things. But at the same time, how do I keep a human touch and empathy that are really essential in the field of volunteering? So this kind of duality, like what are the unique human features that we need to be aware of and keep on while still looking at AI pragmatically, that it can save some time for us and be helpful then.
Yeah, so maybe one practical tip that you can use, and I actually found in a book called Co-Intelligence by Ethan Mollick, a professor at Wharton University, that I will also share as a resource. But I really liked it. Take a list of things you have to do during the day, your tasks, and then for each of them decide, is this something I want to delegate to the AI completely? Is this something where I want to cooperate with the AI as a sparring partner, as a revision tool, and what are the tasks that I'm keeping to myself? And then as you think through this, you will realize that the ones where you have to have agency, the ones where you're making the calls and decisions, will always be in the third or maybe in the second column and never in the first. But then everything else that's in the first column for you, probably you will find some ways of doing it that somebody else has found or that you can do. So whatever administrative work, you can ask AI to draft your emails that then you will read through. If you're writing a project proposal, you can ask for I don't know, a consistency check, or you can ask for gap analysis to initiate the gap analysis versus what is required from you, and then to initiate a conversation with the tool about this. You can ask it to do your language review, clarity review, that kind of thing. And before you do all of this, you give the instruction to the tool from which angle you want it examined, because it's a general purpose tool. If you make a generic request, you will get a generic answer. But if you ask the tool, please review this from the point of view of a youth worker with experience in social issues, something like that, you're more likely to get a more pointed response. Or if you ask, you can also ask, review this as a language expert, and then you will get the language analysis, which does not talk about the social issues mentioned in your work. So give some guidance to the AI, point it where you want it to go, and then critically examine what is giving you. But that will help you sometimes organize your thinking, but that will not make your judgment for you.
Thank you very much. Jarno?
Yeah, I really agree with Jan. And I compare the using AI to the sandwich. Like when like giving the AI to do everything, it gives the bad results. But like in sandwich, you have to, the first layer would be like you give the prompts or guidance to the and give the sources and over there. Then the one small part can be doing like AI giving the something answers over there, and the last result you have to do yourself. So between the sandwiches is the AI over there, and often when I see the patterns for if I'm doing myself, it's that I give the whole tasks to the AI, and I expect that there will be a good result out of there. But in the beginning and in the end, there has to be always the human doing the hard work.
Yeah. What a nice symbol, yeah. Using AI as a sandwich. So yeah, there is technology involved, but the human is there as in a main kind of driver's seat. So Len, what's your take on this duality between the humanistic part in our projects in volunteering and nonprofit field, and yeah, being okay with the technology in a way?
Yeah, I have to say that's something that that I have been facing for some time, and maybe something to discuss later on, but I've been seeing a lot of kind of standardization with the volunteering project. So, for example, very concrete example, but when we're looking for volunteers for ESC projects, for example, we tend to receive kind of the same emails, the same CVs, the same cover letters. My guess is that because they've been crafted with the support of AI, and maybe without this refining and this sandwich advice from before. So I would really encourage to cultivate the individuality, whether the content are supported by AI, but we really like to see who the volunteer is, who the person is, what do they want. We want to cultivate the imperfections, because that's when we really learn who they are. And that's when we also cultivate the human social aspect that is at the core of non-formal education, from my perspective. So I would really encourage the individuality and the imperfection part of it, because that's it stands out in a way when it's more individual, less perfect in a way. I think from my perspective as someone organizing ESC projects and receiving a lot of emails from volunteers, that stands out in that sense, and yeah, that's what I would encourage.
Thank you very much, Solen. Yes, our time is almost up, and actually we had quite a flow of questions coming in. Unfortunately, we won't be able to answer them here, but what we can promise that we're going to look through the questions and identify some interesting resources that we can share with you in our Padlet board. It's a digital board where we are collecting various interesting resources. So also invitation from the panelists that feel free to share links here in the chat. And I saw already Dan sharing one link with all of you to the publication that he mentioned. People were asking more things. Yeah, how can I use AI in my projects or in organization in ethical way? You heard, I think, some of the examples already. Yeah, on some key principles like what is to consider and where the human is still central figure, and how technology can be more of a help or saving time or increasing the quality of the work you do, and still in a conscious manner and by conscious choice of which tools do you use and where these tools are developed and what's the business model behind. There were questions more about the vision, for example, AI in 10 years. And I won't be asking the webinar guests for this question, but it's an invitation to all of you to have that exercise. Now, when you see how fast it is developing, what is the future you see? How it will evolve? And most importantly, what future you would like to see and what is your role? What is the role of each of us being actively involved in the field of NGOs, organizations, projects? How do we want to shape this field, or we just always stay in the passenger seat? Then, big thanks to our webinar guests for sharing your thoughts and ideas and your practices. And now, Amanda, let everyone know where people can find already quite some resources. And as I promised, we're going to be adding more.
Thank you, Laimonas. Let me share the screen. All right. Before we close the session, I would like to briefly show you this resource that we prepared for this webinar series. If you were there the last weeks, you already know. So we collected a number of digital tools and practices and resources that can support you and your organization working with the European Solidarity Course. To make them easier to explore, of course, we use this tool, which is a visual board. You can find links, tools, example, all in one place. So this is kind of a living resource. I mean, it has been connected to the whole series. Since this one is already our third webinar, we have been updating these tools step by step, and we will add resources after today's session. So it is organized, as you can see, in different columns. The third column relates to today's webinar. So you can find some tools and resources that has been mentioned, and others will be added soon. And the other columns, of course, refers to the previous webinars. So we talk about digital well-being and mental health, and also project managing and facilitating tools. We also try to organize this Padlet in a way which reflects different phases of an European Solidarity Course project. For example, we have preparation, communication, implementation, and mentoring. So it's easier for you to identify which tools you need and take a look at these columns. You can see different useful links for you. We also included some specific resources for today's session to explore further. For example, we have Digital Com Framework, which helps to better understand digital competencies, or platforms like Vita Science, which offer interactive ways to explore coding and digital learning. And at the top, you can see we included a contribution from Christelle Plouquet from the French organization L'Heure d'Orange West, who is working on promoting digital awareness among children within an ESC project. She couldn't join us today, but she agreed to record a short video presentation, and you can find it in the Padlet. I will soon give you the link in the chat. You might notice that some very well-known tools are not included. This is because we wanted to give more visibility to practices and resources coming directly from organizations working in the youth and volunteering field. And of course, you are very welcome to add your tools if you have some interesting insights for us. So this Padlet is open to you as well. So I will now share the link and leave you to the final thoughts. Okay.
Thank you very much, Amanda. And now it's time to close our third webinar in the series of webinars on exploring digital transformation in European Solidarity Corps volunteering. So first of all, a big thanks to our webinar guests today and all the other guests of all the other previous webinars. And of course, a special appreciation goes to the webinar organizers, which made those webinars possible. First of all, a French national agency of Erasmus Plus and European Solidarity Corps, Salto European Solidarity Corps Resource Center, Salto Digital, and all the national agencies that contributed, helped in promoting these webinars, and of course, all the organizations and all the people who joined the webinars today, and then also the previous ones. Always, you can come to social media channels of Solidarity Corps Resource Center, Facebook or YouTube. You can check the recordings there from the previous webinars, and soon we're going to have a edited, recorded webinars where you can revisit, check some questions, answers, resources, and ideas for your future projects. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good